times are going to get tough. You have to be resilient. One of my greatest skills was just I always had resilience. It was really important to just keep grinding and have that grit, have that thick skin. It's not always going to go your way. You're not always going to win. You are going to go through these tough times and you need to stay mentally strong. Every failure, you can reframe it into a learning, reframe those moments, keep moving forward. Welcome to the Everyday Entrepreneur. Today, we're going to talk about mindset. Since I became an entrepreneur over 10 years ago, I've had an unwavering belief that I was going to be successful. Even through the toughest of times, this was one of the things that was bulletproof for me. And I want to give you some tactical information on how to improve your mindset and just ways to look at it through the journey of entrepreneurship. And so one of the most important things that you always have to have is a growth mindset. You have to do hard things. You always have to be pushing forward, and you're going to make mistakes. You're going to get rejections. You're going to have failures. But I was always trying to reframe those things into what did I learn from this and how can I get better next time? And always looking in the mirror that I was the problem on why something wasn't achieved or I didn't get the result that I want. I never tried to blame it on anyone else. And this mindset for me allowed me to power through the toughest of times during the entrepreneurial journey. You are going to go through these tough times and you need to stay mentally strong. So having a growth mindset is absolutely critical for you to get through these times. Having resilience and grit. I love this Thomas Edison quote. I have not failed. I have just found 10,000 ways that it won't work. I think he's talking about building the light bulb at this time. But times are going to get tough. You have to be resilient. You cannot be in the dumps for too long. Allow yourself the space when these things happen, but you need to get back to it. You need to have that grit. You need to have that tenacity to keep going. I think that's so important for entrepreneurs. You cannot give up. One of the things that Evan, my partner and who we've been working with together for over 10 years now, said that one of my greatest skills was just I always had resilience. I couldn't always find optimism at the time. I tried my absolute best, but it was really important to just keep grinding and have that grit, have that thick skin. It's not always going to go your way. You're not always going to win. Reframe those moments, keep moving forward. So don't give up when things get tough. Every failure, you can reframe it into a learning. We kept a Google Doc as stated. We kept literally a list, and I just called them lessons, and they were truly actually failures, times we had to pivot, and you got to keep trying until you succeed. Another point that I will say is that some entrepreneurs with certain businesses, there are times, and this is kind of savage, I think I've said this before, but you have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you have been trying at something for, say, 2 or 3 years and you've had no successes, it might be time to pivot and move on to something new. And that can be extremely hard. So there is a time when you do need to give up eventually if the product or the market are just not accepting what you have built and it's not working. But you want to give it 110% until you succeed, especially if you have a good idea and a good market and a good product. Next, having a vision and purpose. I talk about having a vision board a lot, but this is what's going to keep you going. Having a powerful, strong mindset, you need to have your vision and purpose aligned with that. It's going to allow you to just keep pushing through and knowing what the end goal is. Like first stated, we wanted to power S&P 500 and very large businesses with good real estate data and analytics. We knew exactly what the vision of the business was. Could we get Fortune 500 companies as clients for this business? What was our purpose? Simplify all the data that they use. And instead of giving them massive data sets, big data wasn't important. It was the small data that they could make actionable insights with. And that was so important to me. So you got to know what you want to achieve. You should always be working on something that you love or like, because otherwise, without that passion, you're really not going to want to wake up every single day. In entrepreneurship, I'm seeing way too much nowadays. It takes 80 to 100-hour weeks at times. Not always, but there are many times that your competition will be working significantly harder or 80 or 100-hour weeks, and they will get ahead of you. So hard work is very important, and having a good purpose and vision allow you to push towards working that hard. And you know, there's the old saying of BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. I think it's a Jim Collins thing, but you have to stay focused on what your vision is. There are a million shiny object syndromes out there right now. The biggest one by far, every company is talking about it. We have freaking AI. I think AI is an incredibly powerful tool that you can use within your business, but you don't have to sell it to your customers. You're still saving the same problem, but you can save time, energy, effort, and even resources by using AI to superpower your business. Stay focused on your big goal. Don't get distracted. Next, being adaptable and flexible. In startup world, this is absolutely critical. When you're finished changing, you're finished. Benjamin Franklin. So there are going to be times when you need to pivot. You need to make fast changes. I will give you a very good example when we were running Estated. We were trying to collect property data from 3,100 counties across the entire United States. We spent 18 months and $2 million on this and had hired nearly 25 or 30 people to achieve this goal. When we thought we got as close as we possibly could with it, we still only had about 65% of the total data of the United States. When we tried to sell this to a client, they said our data wasn't complete enough. I literally went into the office, and within 24 hours, we had fired that entire team, and we had pivoted to a new way to acquire that data. It was one of the most aggressive changes and pivots we did in our entire business. But we took that new data that we acquired, we repurposed it, and we were selling it within 90 days, and we had tons of clients, and then we were eventually acquired for 8 figures. So being flexible and adaptable, even when things don't go to plan, is critical in startup and entrepreneurship in general. So be ready to change the plan when you need it. The world's always going to be changing. Like in the last couple of years, we've had AI come in. You can superpower a lot of your business and the needs, and you're just going to have to pivot and keep growing along with this. And just being flexible will allow you to succeed. One of my favorite ones, Kaizen, always be learning, be curious. I don't realize this enough, but when I turned 20 years old, I fell in love with reading. I wasn't a great student, but today, my mentors and I have learned so much from books, people who aren't alive, and I absorb because I'm curious about it. From the health world, I've learned so much from Peter Attia, Ben Greenfield. There's, Mark Sisson, Andrew Huberman. I'm always curious about how to optimize things within my life. Like, curiosity is such a great mindset to have for entrepreneurs. Another great point that I have in here is ask a lot of questions. No question is stupid in entrepreneurship. When you're trying to grow and you're trying to build something, it's so important to ask lots of questions. No question is a stupid question. Be smart about them. Be thoughtful. Don't waste people's time. But sometimes you just have to get them off your plate just to get the answer. And if you know the answer already, don't ask the question. It's a waste of time. But keep learning new things. I'm such a big fan of this. I push it so hard. Customer focus. As an entrepreneur, aside from the people within your company, your customers are going to be the most valuable resource of knowledge that you can gain. You're going to have to adapt. You're going to have to change things. You're going to have to pivot depending on your customers' needs. So you must focus on your customers. This is something that is a non-negotiable. For your product to keep growing, for you to keep increasing revenue, to find more leads, you are going to want to find out what your customers are working on, how you're helping them, where you're finding them. There's so much that we can talk about this within the sales and marketing. We talk about it in the business fundamentals, but listen to your customers more than you talk to them. Happy customers are always great for your business. You want to keep your customers happy. I love customer success. I think it is a completely overlooked department in many startups. Making sure that your customers are successful and happy is so important. And then always be improving. Kaizen, you guys know. Risk management. If you talk to my accountant, Emily, she would say that my risk tolerance and appetite is extremely high. I am 34 years old. I have made millions of dollars, and so I feel fairly comfortable taking very large risks. Now, financially, I would say my largest risk has been investing in crypto for almost 7 years now. Crypto is extremely volatile. The prices whipsaw up and down, but at the end of the day, I manage that risk with a majority of my investments going to real estate, hard assets that I can rent out every single month, and they give me cash flow. And so I look at risk management as I have a very big appetite for it. Now, when you're in the beginning, You should not spend above your means, and you need to be very, very smart with this. Another good way to look at risk management is to do SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Looking at the threats to your business. Like, I have some friends who are running a business right now. They're making almost $1 million a month. And one of the biggest threats that I see for them, there's two actually. There's the competition, because their product is duplicatable. It would be very easy for a company that is similar or larger than them to duplicate the product, rip them off, and steal a significant amount of the market share. And the second one is if the ad platforms do a random change on you. I remember over the last 10 years, Google's done a penguin change and a few other changes. And in the past, I think in 2016 or 2017, Facebook made some massive changes to their advertising platform. It destroyed customer acquisition for a lot of businesses. So be very careful and mindful of what the biggest threats are to your business. And if you have weaknesses in them, turn them into strengths and focus on them. And a last point on this is just think very carefully about this stuff. I loved going on walks and assessing, taking a few hours just to really clear my head and deeply think about what those threats and risks were. It's so important for an entrepreneur because they're always going to be there. They're never going to go away, but you need to be aware of them. This is one of my favorite ones. Being disciplined and executing. Oh my gosh. I have a personal situation going on with this right now, but someone in my life says very often that I'm going to get to it next week. I'm going to get to it in a couple weeks. I'm going to talk to them in a couple weeks. Oh, I can do this in a couple months. And I don't think you will ever achieve success if you push things off that could be done today a week from now. You might as well just say you're not going to do it. So you need to be able to execute. The Effective Executive is a great book on this as well. Prioritizing your time. It's just a great book. But having the ability to execute on the most important tasks. I love 75 Hard because there was a power list in it where it was like write down 3 to 8 tasks that must be done before you check out today. And if you get into a routine of doing that and a discipline and consistency of getting your power list done every single day, you will achieve 10x what everyone else in your industry is. And when you're an entrepreneur and you have competition, you need to be executing and have discipline and consistency with that. So I think this is such an important part of your mindset to continuously work on. And it is a day-by-day thing. If you didn't do a good yesterday, do better today. 1% better every single day will prove massive gains compared to everyone else. So stay focused, execute on what's most important to you, and stay disciplined. I think a great thing that Dan Martell has been really coaching me with over the last little while is also just having your identity will change when you start to get shit done and when you start to achieve success. And not everyone's going to come with you. That's the unfortunate side of it. But at the end of the day, you should be focused on yourself. And I think that's so important. So always set clear goals for yourself. I talk a lot about measure what matters, stick to plans, work hard. Regular effort will make you successful. I'd rather have consistency in there. I should change the words in here, but we'll keep that in here. This has been probably the hardest challenge for me through entrepreneurship. I generally come from a mindset of pessimism. It's not the greatest trait that I have, but I am looking for what is the biggest risk right now? What's the thing that I'm afraid of? What's the problem? And I will dive into that very aggressively. I talked earlier about brutal honesty delivered kindly, how often I forget about the kindly part. But a good lesson I learned many years ago from my friend Danny, worth hundreds of millions of dollars, was that you should always go into a conversation, go into a meeting, go into, a sales pitch, go into your own business pitch to investors with optimism and positivity. You have to have good intent and expect good intent from the other party. If the other party doesn't have good intent, it's probably not a good time to be talking to them. And so this will also just make you a happier, healthy human at the end of the day. If you show up every single day and you are positive and optimistic, more people will want to work with you. It's very much the happy, healthy human mantra that we ran within our company. It was like, it's easier to work with happy, healthy humans. They show optimism and positivity every single day. And ways to continuously build on this, especially if you're executing and have discipline and consistency, these things will just come because you're going to feel like a powerhouse. But you got to believe in yourself and ideas. You got to have confidence. You got to stay positive even when times are tough, because no matter what, you're going to go through tough times. And if you just negative spiral your way into negativity and being pessimistic about things, you bring people into that world, and your team is just a reflection of your attitude and headspace. And so your goal is to always be optimistic and just, have hope and confidence. So that's the wrap up on entrepreneurial mindset. These are just the entrepreneurship fundamentals that throughout my career have really helped me power through some of the toughest times and stay resilient and consistent and disciplined to keep pushing forward. Thank you for tuning in. If you like this video, please subscribe to our channel, leave a comment below. And if you're watching this in the Everyday Entrepreneur School program, thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one.